Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give people a chance to get in. While we're doing that, you are more than welcome in the chat to put in your name, pronouns, and what neighborhood you live in. And we're going to give people a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
I woke up feeling great. The birds are in the trees. They're singing me a melody. La 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 la, fuck the police. My head is on straight.
We'll give it one more minute and then we'll get
My soul is
started.
incredibly ready to change his story. It's a
Everybody sat down
to fight the system. To fight the system.
it's not see we're gonna stop the punt. Short kick.
We're never gonna stop.
No,
We're gonna make it count.
they
When
got
one of us is
two
tired
quarterbacks
out,
there.
the other one
Guy
will hold it down.
that's funny.
We're gonna
He's from the show. And then
All right. Give me 1 second. We're playing with things today, so with sound. So why is this doing weird thing? Sorry, y'all. Patience. I appreciate your grace. All right. Let's get started. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're excited for this one. November is a month where most of us are doing some, you know, other things, but we're glad everyone could join us today to be part of all of this. Today's Building Tenant Power Workshop is co-presented with our amazing partners at Queer Power Alliance and with special guests from the Tenant Law Center to answer some questions. And this whole workshop is going to be on knowing our rights. So we will walk in. For those of you that don't know, my name is Tanya Moore. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the operations director at B Seattle. I work with Kate, our organizing director. And our guest speakers tonight are Erin Chandler from Queer Power Alliance, who's going to be talking about your rights as a renter. Kate will be covering the importance of tenant advocacy and organizing and how to get involved. And Kasey Burton from the Tenant Law Center is here to answer some basic questions during our Q&A. And so we're going to get started with a land acknowledgement. We are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples. I would like to recognize that we are occupying the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. As we do this important work on these lands, we understand that our collective liberation cannot happen without Indigenous sovereignty. We encourage each of you to sign the petition for federal recognition of the Duwamish tribe. And if you're able, visit the Longhouse and pay rent to the Duwamish. You can learn more from Real Rent Duwamish. We'll include a link for them in the resource guide, as well as throughout the night, you'll see links in the chat. And we'll also send out our resource guide after the presentation. It contains contact information for the Renting in Seattle Helpline, the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, also known as SDCI. They're responsible for enforcing landlord-tenant laws, the Seattle Office for Civil Rights, as well as a bunch of other organizations that provide services to renters. Oh, sorry, something got messed up. We have two renter councils that we work with, and we work to strategize and fight for renter protections that we feel are important to the communities. Give and receive peer-to-peer support for folks organizing in their buildings, grow renter power, and build community. We will drop these links to sign up for the email lists in the chat, and you are welcome to sign up for them and receive information. And now on to some amazing things going on in our communities in the next few weeks. Saturday, November 18th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Metropolis, 2931 First Avenue South, Seattle. It will also be live streamed. 350 Seattle presents Intertwined 2023. 350 Seattle is celebrating their 10th anniversary with a lively event filled with music, fun, and a shared feast. The organization has a lot to commemorate and invites friends and neighbors to join them on the 18th at Intertwine for their annual dinner and fundraising celebration. The occasion will provide an opportunity to applaud the hard work and achievements of their resilient community, as well as the remarkable grassroots momentum that's been generated over the past year and throughout the past decade. Wednesday, November 29th, 6:30 p.m. at Southside Commons, Space, boldly going where riders face injustice. The Transit Riders Union 2023 fundraiser is happening. For 11 years, the Transit Riders Union has been a voice fighting for working people in Seattle and King County. TRU members are making change in our communities. They're focused on access, accessibility, affordability, and accountability. There's so much to celebrate, from their work to raise the wage, their bus rider advocacy, their solidarity fund, their work with the Mass Coalition, and their Stay House, Stay Healthy coalition. Now is the time to come together as a community and ensure the fight still to come have the resources they need for success. On Thursday, November 30th, from 4 to 5 p.m. via Zoom, the Washington Low-Income Housing Authority presents Roadmap to Housing Justice Release Annual Meeting. Join them for their annual meeting and release of the Roadmap to Housing Justice. This roadmap is a call to action for lawmakers and a rallying point for our communities. It lays out the policy changes and investments needed to create housing justice in Washington. Thursday, November 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, Queer Power Alliance presents Advocacy and Leadership for Worker Organizing Part 1, Unionizing. Join QPA for a training on advocacy and leadership for workplace rights and worker organizing. On Tuesday, December 12th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom is the second part of that workshop. Queer Power Alliance presents Advocacy and Leadership for Worker Organizing Part 2, Labor Rights. This will focus on worker rights, reporting violations, and how to use administrative and legal processes to your advantage. James Oliveros from the South Seattle College Labor Education and Resource Center will be joining as a presenter. Wednesday, December 13th from 3 to 4:45 p.m. via Zoom. Solid Ground presents general tenant information. Discuss tenants' rights and procedures from the Residential Landlord Tenant Act of Washington State. You'll learn how to make a formal repair request, break your lease, formally move out of your unit, and get your deposit back, and more. Wednesday, December 13th at 5 p.m. via Zoom, the Resident Action Project statewide meeting. RAP will be hosting a housing justice narrative training in collaboration with Community Change and Policy Link. The training will go deeper into the research strategy and the housing narrative toolkit, with opportunities to practice and work on your own storytelling. The training will prepare you to deliver powerful testimony, increase your impact with the media, and to recruit more people to the housing justice movement. Thursday, December 14th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at El Centro de la Raza in room 311 or online via Zoom, the Seattle Renter Organizing Council meeting. We will be discussing how best to organize for the next year, how to make decisions as a group, and more. Come help us make SROC even stronger in the year to come. Wednesday, December 20th from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. in person, location to be determined, and online via Zoom, is the Elder Rental Council meeting, and we'll drop that link in the chat as well. And Wednesday, December 27th, 6 to 8 p.m., be Seattle's December Building Tenant Power Workshop, Ghosts of the Year Past and Future Ahead. Come learn about what was accomplished this year for tenants, what the new year will bring, and learn about advocacy opportunities and how to make sure your voice is heard in the fight for tenant rights. So that
Tanya,
was a
there's
lot.
a hand here.
Okay.
Kenyatta Bell has a hand up.
Okay, Kenyatta.
Hi, good afternoon. It's been a little while, guys. I've been busy, or good evening. So I have a question about the meeting. You may or may not be able to answer this, but the one on the I presume it's the 13th. They were talking about getting deposits back. Now, my question statement around that is when someone's done their due diligence, and a couple of faces on here will have heard this a little bit maybe, but for the last year, I've been working with the prior landlord diligently, sending notices and by law reflected the landlord tenant law number, stuff like that. And they have continued to blatantly, even after an attorney, a volunteer attorney from Northwest Justice Project, wrote them a notice. So I'm wondering if at these meetings, because this seems to be a critical situation problem happening a lot around the board, where we have these laws, yes, we have these meetings to go to, but then when it comes to accountability, nothing is still done. So I've gone through every single advocacy channel. So I'm just wondering if at these meetings, is there somebody now that tells us the next step to do after you've done everything landlord tenant law tells you to do? So that's my question, because I think that we could get further if somebody can actually put accountability on landlords now. Predatory landlords are disgusting me right now. Thank you for your time.
So
Kate,
we
do you
have
want
been
to?
doing some organizing around that, at least here in Seattle, which I think I think you're not technically in Seattle, so that will need to be addressed.
No, I'm in Bellevue. Good to see you totonight, by the way. You look great.
Thank you. It is something that we need addressed at a statewide level. And Kasey is our attorney here tonight. So Kasey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the next step is to file small claims.
Yes, that's correct. If your landlord has not returned your deposit, and they should have, then small claims is your next step. And it can be a little frustrating because small claims is a bit backed up now, but you can ask.
Quick
Well,
question.
let me finish here real quick. And you can also ask for twice the amount they withheld back. So, okay, now I'm ready.
So sorry to cut you off. I am working on that. That's like my goal this year, to work on question. I'm being serious. So thank you for being understanding for that. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's a goal of mine this year, guys. I'm so
Yeah,
serious.
we all gotta have goals.
So with that in mind, here's something else that we find with agencies that help Section 8 and predatory landlords like mine. Lily Fu, just to put the name out there if you want to look it up, Lilyfu, owns 17 plus homes in the Bellevue, Washington area, rents them all out to Section 8 individuals and or programs and nonprofits. None of the homes are up to code and have many city things after them. With that in mind, when she's getting deposits from individuals, she knows that with a Section 8 voucher individuals, more likely than not, they can get deposits 3 times the amount of rent like she did me. We had to pay $21,000 to get in here. My last property was 3 times the amount of my rent. So that is $12,100 we paid there for deposit. Didn't do a move-in inspection. Absolutely every violated code, all the way down to I think it was Kasey, all the way down to an attorney sending a letter that you need to return all of the deposit, and if you don't return all of the deposit, then we're suing for 2 times the amount of deposit and punitive something. So in the case of Section 8, where I'm trying to get to, a lot of times we're finding in my 1.5 year research, a lot of times it's over small claims amount that
And
these
that can definitely be
landlords are
tough.
getting. So it's no longer in the $5,000 realm. So myself and about
It's
9 other
$10,000
people,
actually.
huh?
It's small claims is 10,000 now.
Up to 10. So these right here, so 4,000 times 3 is 12. So then I don't know how you do that, but because our demand was for 12,390 something bucks or something like that. So I guess the next step is, if someone's willing to help me, direct me that next step as I continue to work with Poe and different landlord tenant agencies, then I'm willing to help people as best as I can, not being an attorney, take those next steps. But it's the next steps, because there's years of proof showing landlords don't give a rat's butt. Individuals on low income don't have the money to sue them usually. So how can a few of us get together and develop something to where we are going after them so they stop doing this? Sorry to take so much time. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you point out something that I know that Kate and I have talked about. We are part of a group that comes together periodically and talks about problems with the housing authorities and how people who with vouchers and such are treated. And it's tough. You're right. What you're seeing is a huge gap in the legal services system, and it's incredibly frustrating for everybody involved except the landlords, I guess.
Yeah. And one last second, if I can jump in. When I moved in here, I had an 805 credit score. With the water problem in this house, the broken pipe that's still broken in this house, I've now used all my credit cards, and my credit score, if I have to move, is hindered horrifically right now, because I owe about $3,000 in bills because I could not afford, check this out, $582 a month water bill and $600 a month for power bill. And this is not a joke. Every single month it's documented.
Okay.
So it's killing me, guys. So
yeah,
I'm done. I'll shut up.
Oh, sorry, Tanya, you were saying something?
No, I was just gonna say we will have a space for question and answers here in a minute, but Kasey, finish what you were gonna say, and then we'll move on to the next section.
Honestly, I can't remember anymore, but I will think on it, and I'm sure I will remember by the time it's my turn to talk again.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So our first speaker tonight is Erin Chandler, who's the program manager at Queer Power Alliance. Erin will be speaking about renters' rights in Seattle. Erin has been in social justice movement spaces for 20 years, raised by a single Black mother, modeling deep connection to the community herself as a public defender for 25 plus years, who taught them to have a strong appreciation for his dual Black and I always mess up how to say this. Kate, jump in. You can say it better than I can. Ashkenaz Ashkenazi, did I say that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's right.
perfect. It's one of those words my mouth has issues with on the SH. Jewish heritage. Aaron learned to let those intersections inform a capacity of nuanced racial justice values and a total lack of patience for systems of oppression and exploitation. Originally in queer movement spaces, Aaron has been in fundraising and resource organizing for 15 plus years, raising millions for work including Black HIV justice and prevention, BIPOC-led environmental justice movement building, the Queer Synagogue, and a community development agency serving a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. They have also organized with Black, Jewish, and Jews of color communities. Along the way, Aaron has allowed formative experiences, professional and personal, to shape and refine his liberationist and abolitionist politics. Aaron identifies as queer, cis-ish man from a Black working to middle class background. When referencing their self, Aaron interchangeably uses he, him, and they, them, but is fine with being addressed by all pronouns. All right, Aaron, make you a co-host so you can. There you go. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. And greetings, everyone. We one of the ideas and things behind like doing this tonight together was that really we're Queer Power Alliance, Tenant Law Center, BCO, we're working all individually and together too in ways on underneath the same we're on housing justice, on building tenant power, on really advancing tenant power and building community power, especially with tenants of color, with queer folks, with queer renters, and really trying to re-envision what housing stability means, and ensuring that is as expansive as possible. So again, I'm with Queer Power Alliance, and Queer Power Alliance is really all about activating and engaging and organizing our region's really diverse queer communities in Seattle and King County, increasingly in Pierce County, and sometimes statewide in terms of legislation as well too, where we interface with that. But organizing and engaging our queer communities around housing justice, economic justice, and building worker power and worker rights. And really working in coalition with others too in those areas. So that's how we came to be here tonight with Tenant Law Center, with B Seattle as well too. And one of the ways that we have worked on housing justice, and one of the ways that kind of we're envisioning going forward next year too, is inclusive of workshops, of trainings, of housing rights forums that some of you all attended as well too. Next year, we're actually bringing back a program that we used to have more than a couple years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, and before that, which were housing rights leadership committees. That folks could really plug into and engage in as well too, and get politically activated on as well too. And so we're really excited to really see what the next year holds, and the content that I'm about to present to you all is pretty high level, and it's relatively brief, but I'm hoping that after that, we can segue into a fuller Q&A discussion. Since Kasey's here, I think I noticed that Emmy is here as well. I'm not sure if they're here in a presenting capacity or not, but we have some expertise here in the Zoom. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Go back into the Zoom. All right, so as I mentioned, Queer Power Alliance does these worker, or not worker rights, but renter rights trainings and workshops about once a quarter, and we usually try to partner up with other organizations, such as again, Seattle. I believe we've done one. Kasey might be able to correct me. I believe we've done one with Tenant Law Center in the past. And Disability Empowerment Center here in Washington as well too is one that's coming up. Gender Justice League. So we're also working on working with Lavender Rights Project as well, and getting these out to the community next year too, particularly with our housing leadership committees. So one of the kind of frameworks that we use, and one of the ways that we think about this, is that renter rights and renter power, building tenant power, is a queer issue. And the Williams Institute, for those of you who might not be familiar, is a public law and policy institute down at UCLA that studies queer public policy and provides research and some time to time policy recommendations too. One of the things they found is that queer folks have experienced discrimination and related to their identities. And I think this is a low number. It couldn't be updated probably, and I would venture to guess it's much higher than that. But because there is also sometimes fear of reporting too, and fear of outing oneself, especially as a queer and trans person in this research. I'm guessing it's over 50% at some point, especially for trans folks. But for all queer renters, according to the Williams Institute, it's been 41%. And we also know that queer folks pay a queer tax too. Back in the 90s, there was also all this research that pointed to the queer community as having more money, more influence that comes with having more money, etc. But that, later was discovered that research was really based off of surveys that were heavily skewed toward white gay cis men responding to those calls for research, those calls for research participation. And since then, there's been a lot more research, especially by folks like the Williams Institute, by other orgs as well too, Queers for Economic Justice, that really kind of shows and outlines a queer tax that folks pay. One of which is not being able to afford rent, not being able to afford housing, being housing insecure, and not having that housing stability, the same housing stability as non-queer folks do. So that's why we do this work, and that's what brings us to this. And one of the things, so Washington State law against discrimination, and King County has very similar ordinances that are substantially equivalent to the Fair Housing Act's, the current Fair Housing Act's protected statuses. And what the Fair Housing Act, of course, does, and Kasey and if you'd like, you can add on to this too, but it prohibits discrimination based on a set of categories that includes race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, familial status, and disability. And while HUD, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, enforces this at the federal level in King County and Washington State, agencies like the Seattle Office for Civil Rights, King County's equivalent, Washington State Human Rights Commission, they enforce these at the state level. So one of the big items that we get lots of phone calls or lots of emails rather, and get lots of folks in our communities asking about really is the just cause ordinance. And I have a little bit of personal experience with someone with a tenant with a landlord when I was a tenant, asking me and my co-tenants to leave without really adequate knowledge of the just cause eviction ordinance. This was in Oakland, not Seattle, but Oakland's law was fairly similar to Seattle's, and I got a bit of a deep dive into what just cause eviction ordinances were and are. But basically, if you're a month-to-month renter in Seattle, there are a number, about a little over a dozen. I think that it's 17, 18 legal reasons that you can be evicted. And some of the reasons might be very consistently paying rent late, violating your rental agreement, or if your landlord wants to move into the unit. And we've encountered folks who've had their landlord lie to get them to move out. For example, if they never actually move into the unit, folks can sue those landlords in small claims court, like we were it involves small claims court, like we were mentioning earlier. And it wasn't the same issue, but anyway, there's a complete list of reasons, and which the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspection has in their renter's handbook. And but your landlord must state one of those 18 reasons in a written notice to terminate vacancy. And it needs to be sent to you 20 days at least before the end of your rental period.
Yeah, and I just want to know with just cause that the choosing to not extend a fixed term lease has been added, so that is no longer considered a just cause. Your landlord is legally required to extend your lease, assuming that they don't have one of the existing reasons. Just
It depends.
Sorry, go ahead, Kasey. You know
Oh,
this.
no, it depends. So if you are at the end of your very first term, then they can give you a 60-day notice that they are not intending to renew. But if they don't do that, then just cause, that's all they've got. And otherwise they have to let you go. Now, it's also important to note too that they might be jerks about it. And yeah, you have a right to renew, but they might let you just do month to month, even though you want a year-long lease. So it's kind of annoying. Big loophole in the law.
Does anyone have any more questions about just cause, or no? There's also a Q&A at the end of this as well too.
You also touched on the first in time ordinance, but I just wanted to say it that landlords are required to lease to the first qualified applicant.
Yeah.
And so they have to publicly post what the qualifications are if they're advertising the unit. And I saw a hand up, Kimyata. I also wanted to note that these are City of Seattle laws. We're Seattle focused. So if there's a
Yeah,
question.
I
that-
totally, yeah, I totally get that. I do, when I'm helping folks on the streets, a lot of these laws come up uniform. So I'm just wondering with, and this is in regards to somebody in Seattle units, and it was part of the same stuff I experienced outside of Seattle, but in her particular situation, the computers, and this is something that's gonna have to be done at a state level too, because when I was helping her, we experienced the same thing with John L. Scott, Zillow, and a couple other platforms where they have made it a very sneaky way where if you don't answer these critical questions, they buffer it. So you're not even going to get in to get your application done. And then second, when we wrote these companies and requested the reason for denying the letter in Seattle. They did not give her a denial letter explaining why they did not rent to her, nor would they tell her why they didn't rent to her. And she was told by the guy, the leasing guy, that she was the first person there. She did qualify for everything, but the second she pulled out her voucher, no, 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 no. Then, like I said, on the computer, when they have people fill out the stuff on the computer, they are blatantly hiding behind a computer and denying people homes. How can we get around this in Seattle when there's proof? What can we do about it?
Kasey, did
Your
you want
options
to
are pretty limited, unfortunately, because our CW sucks on this. So I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of laws have suck. Like they're better than they were, but they're not great. And so in this case, if you were denied, your application was denied, you weren't told why, you weren't provided with the information that you were supposed to be provided with, you can take them to small claims. And I think the amount is, oh, here, let me double check it. Yeah, $100. That's all you can get in small claims. Right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so it sounds like they make it
Sucks.
so small that it's not even worth having the landlord or any of them be accountable.
Yeah.
So why would they?
Yeah,
Period.
I mean, it
Yeah,
sucks.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
So let's go on. So we mentioned first in time ordinance, but basically what that's designed to do is to offer a rental agreement to the first qualified applicant who really submits a complete application, and the landlord or property manager really must cooperate with all applicants, using a housing subsidy, such as completing required paperwork, etc. But landlords are required to really date and timestamp applications in order of receiving them, and they're required to give applicants 72 hours for additional, I believe it's 72 hours for additional information on a completed application, and provide, I believe, 2 days, so 48 hours for a response before moving on to the next applicant. Is that still correct, folks? Can you confirm that, Kasey?
Sorry, I was typing something. Could you say that one more time, please?
Is that still correct? 72 hours for additional information on a completed application?
2 hours. I haven't heard an hours requirement, but let me double check really quickly.
So, and then 48 hours, I believe, for a response before moving on to the next applicant. And so, because renting is super competitive and stressful, and it's a challenge to gather all the paperwork, and especially when you don't have, or when you've been locked out of the systems that provide some of that. But generally, the following is pretty helpful. Having your current and previous addresses, or landlord info, names and birth dates of all occupants, employment or income information, references, which could include personal or housing related information references or pet information. So, and then with that, I think Kasey was checking, but I believe 72 hours and then 48 hours before they can move on to the next applicant for a response. Kenyatta, I see your hand raised? Hey there, Kenyatta.
Are you on mute?
I'm going to put it down. I think it was by accident. It was left up from last time.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then just on a final note, though, I told you this is going to be brief and really high level, but just in closing, and we'll touch on this too, but of course, Seattle has a renters commission, and just I want to provide ways of advocating. Seattle, the renters commission, the Seattle LGBTQ commission is really trying to beef up their own work on housing justice and tenant power and tenant rights when it comes to especially to queer folks and queer and trans folks. And one of the things we've seen, unfortunately, with smaller landlords, it's tended to be often the case. We've have folks in our community who really dealt with anti-trans violations and discrimination in Seattle, particularly with, as I said, smaller landlords who try to get around these in sometimes sneaky ways, sometimes obvious ways. And so the Seattle LGBTQ Commission is really working on that right now and trying to build out a survey and they're to inform their area of work that would include working specifically on that. And then of course there's a sustainability and renters rights committee as well too. So just wanted to open up for questions, and as I said, I'm here and we have other folks here as well too.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you explain more about when landlords are legally required to bring repairs?
When they're legally required to what?
To begin repairs?
Sure, one sec. Yeah. I'm trying to get back to the Zoom. There I go. Let's see. I know that's we had just wrote someone about that. Yeah, so 24 hours for items that are related to water, heat, electricity, or very similarly very urgent items like that. 72 hours for in situations where you cannot use major appliances like a fridge, stove, oven, or plumbing, and 10 days for other repairs. And the landlord must repair unless damages are directly caused by you and your guest, and that they can show that.
And I see Kasey dropped a link in the chat.
Yeah.
And I see there's a hand raised. Did it go down?
Whose hand is raised? I can't quite see.
I think it was Kimiata, but it went down.
Okay.
There are a couple like other renters' rights that I just wanted to touch it on that we advertised for this workshop. So how can you tell us more about the eviction, the economic displacement relocation assistance that landlords are supposed to provide if they increase their rent by 10% or more in a 12-month period?
I don't have that information offhand myself.
I was me and posted more links in the chat.
Kasey, yeah, I noticed that you've just sent that to
I just always like having things in writing because it's easier for me to remember if I have something I can reference.
Thanks for that, Kasey.
So I have a question, if I can jump in for Kasey. This is Kim Bell for Seattle. In regards to like the 24-hour and 72-hour and 10 days for others. When a landlord does not fix those items, and say you fix the broken kitchen sink, for example, and you give the landlord the bill, and they still charge you and say that you didn't pay rent, even though you sent them that bill in Seattle limits, what should their next step be?
So if you're within Seattle city limits, I always recommend folks go to SDCI because they do have that enforcement power. And they can also fine the landlord if the landlord does not complete the repairs that they have identified. And so that's always nice to have. And if you're not in Seattle, then, calling in code enforcement is helpful too. If they are still saying that, it would kind of depend on how they proceed. So you have a couple of options. Either one, they try to evict you for non-payment of rent, and that's a defense that you can bring up in court. And you just say, here are all my receipts. Here's the written notice that I provided them to request repairs. Here's the second notice. Here are all the quotes. I did everything in accordance with, the rules and how they go, because there's a special way to do it. And I'll drop more stuff in the chat. If they persist, then that's your chance to push back and say, no, I don't owe this money. And so that could get the case thrown out. If they wait until after you've moved out, it depends. If they've kept your security deposit, then you would, of course, sue them for the security deposit. And you also have the opportunity to, if they've sent it to a collections agency, to dispute it. So if you ever have a debt from like a landlord or something on your credit report, you call in, you say, I would like the documents verifying this debt. And then they have to send you everything they have on him. And that sort of just shows you like, okay, so this is where they're saying this is from, this is where, and you can challenge it. The problem is, unless you sue them, all they'll do generally is kind of put like contested or disputed on your credit report. So again, another shortcoming for you to work on.
Maybe I might have said that a little bit confusing for you. So the renter in Seattle, I'm gonna call her Tara. Her and her husband fixed the item. This is where this predatory landlord has done something that my landlord has done out here in Bellevue, just to put out there, but I don't know what to have them do in Seattle. That's why I'm tapping into this meeting tonight. So in this particular case, they fixed the item. The landlord then went to Section 8 and said, they didn't pay me rent. Section 8 does not get in between the landlord and the renter, and then and then gave the renters in Seattle a notice that they must comply with their landlord or move out. Section 8 then gave Tara a notice to move out of the property and
We
left
would
them
want them to
hanging.
call. We would want them to call us at the Tenant Law Center so we could walk them through how to handle that, especially if there's a housing authority involved. And the housing
But what
authority
they
isn't.
did, they paid it. They had their church pay it. So now they've paid for the repair and they've now had to pay the back rent.
There's also a very specific process that you have to follow if you're going to do
And they went
repairs on
through
your.
the,
Oh, good.
yeah, they went through every single, like I said, I was guiding her, and she went through every single one of the laws. She wrote the proper notice. She gave them proper time. She then gave them an estimate of the cost. She then asked them, do they want to do it? Do they want to have somebody and come in? The landlord said, nope, 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 blatantly ignored them. They then fixed it. Go ahead, sorry.
It sounds like the housing authorities dropping the ball on that one. And unfortunately, we have that problem a lot with the housing authorities.
Yeah, so how do we get through that? Because I'm finding that a lot.
They call us and we would try to, if we have the opportunity to have an attorney take that case, because we're a pretty small team and we take as many as we possibly can.
I know, that's why I'm trying to see what I can do.
Yeah, and so like that might require somebody stepping in and saying, look, I'm an attorney, you are not following X, Y, and Z law, and to go to the housing authority and say, you have all this documentation of what was going on. What the hell happened? So that's what I would recommend. And I'll drop also our landlord also can't charge for repairs unless it's your fault. So like if you punched a hole in the wall, like that's your fault and you have to pay for the repair. But if it's something more like
this is a broken water,
that's not you.
This is another different item where a heater in the house doesn't work and they keep complaining, and then they had to have someone come out and fix the pipe, and the landlord knew about it. The prior renters knew about it, and she I mean they just refused to fix anything. So
yeah, God, I'm sorry, that sucks.
I had a statement and then a question about what I'm going to say, and that's regarding rent increases in general. In Seattle, we're supposed to get 180 days notice for rent increases, and I am wondering if that also applies to tenants who are receiving a subsidy, because I've been hearing that they are not getting that because it has something to do with HUD.
Yeah, it's kind of messy because I'll have to go pull up the email again because I was emailing with somebody at SDCI about this, or somebody at work, one of my coworkers was. Technically, if it's a federally subsidized housing situation, then they only have to give 30 days notice of a rent increase. Let me go back and see if I can find that really quickly so that I can give you as much info as I have.
Thank you. And while you're looking, I just wanted to just touch on some other protections. And I know we're hopping around a little bit, but I think it's important to note that like we have all of these renter protections here in Seattle, but they're entirely the enforcement is complaint based. So if you don't know that they exist and you don't complain to the city, your landlord can get away with whatever they want. And Tanea says in the chat, I can confirm that is true and we'll look for the SMC. I just helped another tenant in a senior building with this. And I assume that was referencing the 30 days notice versus 180 days notice.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it does apply to low income tax credit properties too. So it does get really wonky. That's why I always advise tenants to read the actual code and not just what's on their website, because the actual code is very, very specific.
Can I jump back in real quick? Is that okay with the attorney? I guess just anybody there, that when you go to small claims and stuff in Seattle limits, there's a cost to that, correct?
When you do what? Pardon?
When you take your landlord or whatever to small claims in Seattle, there's a cost of that burden, right? Are there
it's all through
agencies that help pay that?
It's all through King County court system. And I believe you can file in forma pauperis, which is basically a court form that says, please waive the filing fee. And you can also ask for the landlord, if you're suing them, to cover that cost. Be like, okay, all these costs plus $50 for small claims.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a few other things. We have a cap on late rent fees at $10 that was recently won through organizing. And we have eviction moratoriums on during the winter, the coldest months of the year, from December to March. Where if you are a low to moderate income renter who falls behind on rent, they cannot evict you until the moratorium is over. You still owe that rent, and they can still evict you when it's done, but there are protections. And then with the school year moratorium, that's for families with children and educators, similarly can't be evicted for back rent during the school year. And Kasey, if I'm saying any of this incorrectly, because I'm doing it off the cuff.
That's okay. What we've actually seen, though, is the way that the courts are enforcing that is they'll still issue the writ of restitution if they think that you've lost your case, but they won't allow it to be enforced until after the end of the school year or winter moratoriums that are in Seattle law, which sucks, but what you can do. I mean, continue fighting them in court every day. So, oh, we've got more hands up.
Brett, go ahead. What's your question?
Hi,
Turn my camera.
I just wanted to see, is this the appropriate time in the agenda for sort of situation-specific questions, or are there other agenda items that that people want to present on first? Because I just have a question.
Oh, I'm not supposed to.
This would be the time.
Okay, great. So yeah, if I can, hi everyone. This is my second workshop, and thanks for all the work that you do. I really appreciate it. I had a kind of a scary situation that happened over the weekend. I've been in my apartment for 13 years now. I have a wood burning fireplace, and during that time, that chimney has never been cleaned. And to my knowledge, no other chimneys have been cleaned in my building. Had the first fire of the season over the weekend, and the chimney caught fire. There's no property damage to my knowledge, and thankfully everybody's okay, but it was an emotional, stressful situation. I have communicated via email to my landlord that, you know, my observation that the chimney has never been cleaned. Also got me going down the rabbit hole of, well, if the chimney hasn't been cleaned, then the dryer vent has also not been cleaned. And made the request that that the entire building, both dryer vents and chimneys, get cleaned. So I kind of want to get an idea from you experts what I should expect from here. I've been trying to do some reading. You know, the wood burning fireplace is not my sole source of heat. So it's more of a luxury item than it is a survival type.
But you're paying for it.
Yeah,
You're paying for a fireplace.
yeah, that's true. So, but can somebody give me an idea of sort of what my rights are from here? I would very much like to get this resolved as quickly as possible. This landlord is not known for being extremely responsive, so I would just like to have all my I would just like to know what to expect from here.
So, have you filed a complaint yet with the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections?
No, I have not. I've just communicated in writing that this happened, and that the fire department did show up. They recommended that the chimney gets cleaned as soon as possible.
I would recommend you get that in writing from them. So if you can follow up with the fire department, because as a lawyer, we always like things in writing. And there's also, if it's unsafe, I just dropped the Seattle Municipal Code in the chat, and it has to be decay free, which to me, if it's not cleaned, there's crap in there that's detritus, and that's decay in my book. But I also dropped the link just now to file a complaint with, oops, that's civil rights, wrong one. Oh wait, no. Oh yeah, that's the wrong one. Sorry, I had too many links open. Okay, SDCI complaint, my bad. I will drop that one right now. Whoops. Well, if you ever have any issues or concerns about discrimination within Seattle city limits, file a complaint with SOCR. So yeah, I would recommend starting there, and you can even just call in and ask them questions, because there's a way to file a complaint online. You can call in and file a complaint, and if you call in, you can ask them, what do I need to know about chimneys in Seattle, and they can tell you exactly what you need to know. And if you need to file a complaint, then you can file a complaint right then and there.
Okay. Oh, and quick clarification. So my written notification email is appropriate for and does count as written notification to the landlord. Is that correct?
I think so. I have a coworker who hates it when people do that, and I'm like, nobody uses letters anymore, Elizabeth. And she's like, everything should be in a letter. I'm like, okay, boomer. And so, I love Elizabeth to death, and she thinks it should always be in a letter. I think it's okay. But if you want to be extra safe, you can do a letter. And I always recommend, if you're going to do a letter, mail it certified so you get that return receipt.
Sure. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Who's next?
Kasey, this is Miss Bell. Individual in Seattle, what one of the judges said to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, they said use the same communication you usually use with your landlord. And if, like they're saying for the boomers, you can also send an additional copy through mail, just so you also have it through a mail carrier. But they highly advise, though, however you talk to your landlord regularly, do it that way and keep proof.
And that does make sense. And that's why I think email's okay. Because if you normally email your landlord and that's how you guys talk, then that's how you guys talk. And so it's reasonable for them to expect to receive communication from you via that particular method.
And I also want to say what I tell tenants, if they're used to just calling their landlord or texting their landlord, is to just send a follow-up email that says, like, summarizing our conversation from earlier, just so you have that documentation.
Yeah, always put it in writing. If it's not in writing, it doesn't count. And so you can send that follow-up email and be like, and because the reason you want to do that is if you do an email right after the conversation, then that can be considered a contemporaneous recorded recollection, which is a bunch of word salad to say that it overcomes the hearsay rule. And if you end up in court and you don't have that email, then it's just you. I pinky swear, Your Honor, I said this. And your landlord's like, what? No, that's an absolute lie. And so, you don't want to get into that. It's just easier to document it, get that paper trail going. Yeah, it does. Tanea's right. Sometimes your lease does say how and where your landlord would like to communicate. And Alexandra, yeah, if it was so great to talk to you, just to make sure we're on the same page. Lorene?
Hi, thank you for taking questions.
Of course.
I am a senior renter, and I have been in this building, senior housing, since 2012. And last month, I got a letter from management saying that I have money due them from 2014. And this is, of course, 2023.
Yeah.
And this is like, I just got this notice.
Is it a valid charge? What's the charge for?
Okay, so underpayment of rent parking. Anyway, there's not a lot of details. I mean,
yeah,
of course, my rent has increased over the 12 years I've been here. So, what I would want to know is, like, what was my rent back then? What, and what did you receive from me? So I can see that, like they have the math correct, because I don't even know if they're doing the math correctly.
Yeah.
But is there a statute of limitations on this? Is, like their accounting is screwed up, and now they're
I'm gonna guess it's their mess up and you probably paid what you were supposed to pay.
Right.
I think asking for a ledger is a really good start. And that way you can go through and see pardon, what they're talking about. And if they're refusing to provide you with a ledger, then I would recommend calling the King County Tenant Resource Line, because that's a big red flag. You can't just say, oh yeah, you definitely owe me money, pinky swear, but I'm not going to prove it to you or give you anything to document that. Pardon. Can you pass me some water? Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I should contact King County who?
Tenant Resource Line. Hold on one moment, please.
Tenant Resource Line.
Thank you. cameo by my lovely partner. I'll drop the number in the chat again.
Okay.
It's a new partnership between Housing Justice Project, Tenants Union, and the Tenant Law Center. And it's a hotline that's open 5 days a week, except for holidays. So it's not going to be open on Thanksgiving. But you can call in with your questions and get some information and resources.
And so, I mean, they can at any time ask for monies that they think I owe. I mean, there is no time limit on.
I think it's going to depend on the individual circumstances, because I think you might have a pretty strong waiver argument there. But I would have to really dig into some of the statute of limitations stuff on that. I know I have a document. Let me double check on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll give Kasey a sec to look that up. But before we move on, I want to see, does anyone have any questions, or is there something they would like clarification on, or that wasn't covered?
Hand up. I kind of do, Tanya.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Red. I've been in the apartment about 12 years or more. It is a personal relationship with the woman that owns the house. Woman that owns the house is an old radical like myself. She's a little bit older than I am. And I moved in here with nothing more than a verbal agreement, basically by pressing the issue. It's quite a story, but I've been in here quite a long time on just giving her an incredibly low amount of rent. I live in central Seattle, give her an incredibly low amount of rent. And this is an apartment where I don't know if any one of you would want to live in here, because it needs repair. I think last time it was renovated, it was 48. But she is a friend of mine. I've met her in the street. I only know her because we were in rallies and marches and stuff, and I'd see her occasionally, and that's basically how I know her for 18 years probably. I have no idea what she has in her bank account. I don't know who owns this house. I don't know what's going to happen when she goes down. She's been smoking tobacco 60 some years, and she's 70 some years old. Okay. Her daughter and her have not gotten along until very, very, very recently. Her daughter does not want this place. And I'm sort of like right on. Every day I'm really secure in my little basement here. I bail the bathtub into the toilet. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me in a bit, because it's I got a beautiful yard. I'm in central Seattle. So, but I'm kind of on the edge of my seat of what will happen whenever my friend passes on, if she beats me out the door. I'm 70. And I've been in here since, I think 14 years or something. 13, 12. I don't know, somewhere in there. But like I say, there's no agreement. We have no agreement except I give her cash in the envelope through her door slot. And I hardly ever see her because she lives up in the upper story of this old house. And there's other renters in the middle story. They're really good people. They're really, really good people. And I see them now and again. And they have no idea either. But they're working. They both work. They have a little boy. And I imagine they would just go house hunting when the time came. So That's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at. It's nothing like what we've been talking about. Completely idiosyncratic thing left over from the movement here in town, if you see what I'm saying. But I'm on the side.
Can you clarify what information you're looking for?
Kind of like, I'm not even sure what will happen to me whenever this property changes hands, if I'm still in here with no anything. I have nothing. No.
You have nothing. And so technically anytime somebody new takes over the property, unless there is something that can overcome it, which, long story, very unlikely, basically you take subject to the lease. Like if I bought a house tomorrow and there were people living in there, I would be taking it subject to their lease. But the thing is, if you just have an oral contract, you're probably month to month right now. And that makes you a lot more vulnerable because they can easily price you out depending on where you're at. And well, you said you're in Seattle, so they have 6 months. Well, I mean, they could still price you out though, because they could just jack up the rent, and they might have to pay some economic displacement relocation assistance. And I did put a link in here. I can drop it again. I know I'm dropping like a million of them. Sorry. Yeah, I think that you've been there long enough that they would still have to use just cause, but they could still do what we call an economic eviction by raising the rent.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. But you know, if you get into a written lease, that could buy you some time. Also, please know that if you're trying to enter into a lease of longer than 1 year, it needs to be notarized by everybody signing. Or everybody signing their signatures to be notarized. You know what I mean?
I feel like I hardly want to stir that up. I have no idea how much layers of burnt stuff is in the bottom of our pot. And I hardly want to ask her to do, like, she has a key that she asked for up there, but doesn't really know where it is. And she's got a little old car in the back and doesn't know where the deed is. And
well,
but
that should have, the transaction at the very least should have been recorded. So if you sell a property, you have to file paperwork with the state that says, hey, I sold this and this is who owns it now. So you could establish ownership that way, and it would also depend on, you know, does she have a will? Because if she passes intestate and there are a lot of people who could potentially inherit from her, that stuff could be tied up in litigation for some time. And that can make it messy.
I was kind of hoping that I can live through this, sort of like prostate cancer. Something else will get me besides eviction.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, it's tough because your options are a little bit limited, but you're not completely without hope. But I will say the more you get in writing, the better. And if she has something in her will that says, you know, let this person live here for however long after I pass, you know, that might be helpful, but it kind of depends on what the paperwork says on that end. And I don't know if you'll ever be able to find out until she passes.
Because Lisa and her, I was there whenever they had a big discussion about the bathroom, really, and they jumped all the way to over 20 years ago, and we're going to go back to a fight of when the yard got dug up. And I'm going, this is messed up, man. I'm just like cringing from it.
So, it's tough when your business and pleasure mix, and so when you're doing business with friends or got something going on that front, it can make it a little bit tougher.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I'm gonna let it go though. I sure appreciate being able to talk about it. You know.
And the King County Tenant Resource Line. If you ever have any more questions, just give us a call.
Right on, sister. I feel like I'm gonna pass on and go cook supper.
Oh well, I hope it's delicious. Oh, okay, bye. He's not sharing. I see Sammy has their hand up.
Yeah, so my situation is a little unusual. So I'll let anyone else go first if they want, because I don't know how many other people this kind of thing pertains to. If there's no one else.
How that?
So I'm house surfing. I'm couch surfing right now. One of the people that I'm couch surfing with, they got an eviction notice for non-payment of rent, which is something that they're going through. And my name was on the eviction notice. And because the landlord stole a piece of mail that I had sent there, which had my security deposit for my old residence. And he texted my friend who I'm couch surfing with and who's getting evicted that he took this piece of mail, admitting to it. So I believe there's a police report now.
Okay.
But basically, my name is wrapped up in this potential eviction.
Yeah.
And is potentially tied to this amount of money that's owed when I have been couch surfing there.
How long have you been there?
Not many days, not many days a
Oh, so
week.
you're literally just crashing there for like a week and then leaving.
I'm
So what they're,
crashing.
oh, sorry.
Yeah. Just like
We keep
once or
going at the
twice.
same time. Okay, I'm gonna wait.
No, go ahead.
No, after you.
Yeah, there's more to it. There's more to it. So yeah, I'm on this eviction notice. My friend thinks that the eviction notice is more intimidation than an actual court case. I think he's gotten these eviction notices before and maybe has reasons that he suspects that the landlord doesn't want to go to court because of, he said that there's not a court case number on the eviction notice, which is unusual, and that means
Well, it wouldn't be unusual because it depends. Is it a summons and complaint or is it a pay or vacate?
I don't know, but I have a picture of it that I can pull up.
Because unless it's like the court documents, with the lines and then the numbers all down the side, and then it's got like the caption that says summons and then it says complaint for unlawful detainer. If it's just a notice, then it would not necessarily like implicate you. It's once it's filed that could potentially be a problem for you. And the reason that the landlord's doing this is one, because they're a dick, and two, to cover all their bases. And because a lot of what landlords do, they're like to, I don't know, Bob Barker and all other occupants. And sometimes they'll say Jane Doe, John Doe, whatever, just to make sure that they have absolutely everybody covered. I don't know why he thinks that you are somehow you're not paying any money. And so at that point, you would have to file probably like a motion to have your name removed from that action if they did bring a court case, because they would not have a claim against you because you're not their tenant and you don't owe them any money and you're not on the lease. So you're just hanging out for a while.
So there's another aspect to it, which is that I was thinking about potentially living there. So my friend asked the landlord if he could get a roommate. So the landlord, the potential idea of a roommate was already on the landlord's radar, and the landlord's response was, "No, you can't get a roommate yet. We can figure that out in mediation." So the landlord found this mail, took this mail, and said, and said, "Oh, it was sent to another unit, and somebody gave it to me, and I returned it to center." And texted a picture of it, and in the picture you can see it's a little blur, but you can see that it was not addressed to another unit. It was addressed to my friend's unit. So
that's a little sketch.
Yeah, it ties into the another question of mine, which is, does text count as written? Like, is text valid?
They can't serve you notice via text message. No.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking like if something like the court.
I've heard of that happening, so I was like,
that
oh
the
god.
Landlord texts are binding.
Are they binding? They're not like a contract, but if you end up in court, they are evidence that you can use.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So like if you're trying to rely on that to get on the lease as a roommate, it's not super binding, and you have to like sue to enforce, and it wouldn't really be worth your time or money.
I'm not trying to get on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I'm not trying to get on the lease as much as I'm trying to continue being able to crash there once in a while without being involved in a court case and without
then your friend needs
my friend being evicted because of me.
Yeah, and I think that your friend's gonna want to have to check their lease to see what the requirements are and limitations are on guests. Because I know some leases, they can restrict it and they're like, oh,
So
if this person stays
there's
after a
no
certain amount of time.
lease. It's the default lease, I guess, if that's a thing, but the
So they
landlord
signed a lease
doesn't.
and then it rolled over?
That's not what they said. I think they said they never signed a lease and it's just whatever the default is. But I don't know if that's a
That's
thing.
not a thing.
Okay, not a thing.
No, there's no
It
like
is month to
magical
month, I
default
know
lease
that
that
much.
exists out in the universe. Otherwise, I would make all landlords use it because there are a lot of bad leases out there. And I think you probably saw in the chat some folks discussing it. Yeah, if it's all oral, I mean, I would say get your friend to tell the landlord in writing, this is my friend. They're just staying with me for X number of days and then they're going on with their life and gonna, I don't know, go stay somewhere else. Like they're not a tenant, they're not an occupant.
Well, you're speaking a little quieter. I can't super much hear as well. Or maybe it's
Oh, am I talking quieter? Is this better?
that's better.
Oh, okay. So a little mic right here. And that's surprising because I'm usually pretty loud. So I would make sure that your friend sends the landlord something in writing and they save a copy that says, this person is not an occupant. They are not a resident. They are not a tenant. They are literally just my friend who's visiting. They don't need to be on this notice. And that's something that your friend needs to do because that's just like covering you, you know?
Should they even say that I'm visiting? Do they need to know that? I mean, the landlord just stole my mail. Why?
You can say, this is my friend. Like he's
Yeah.
not living here. And it can be just those two sentences.
So
Sammy is my friend. Sammy does not live here. Leave Sammy's mail alone. Bye.
mhm. So that's enough. You don't think that I have to contact him with a lawyer, or I should say,
Right now, if you get a summons and complaint, and they sometimes don't have case numbers on them. Sometimes landlords will serve them unfiled.
sorry, I can't hear as well again.
Sometimes landlords will serve unfiled summons and complaints. And so I can understand your concern that it would be a legal document, but unless it says at the top, like Superior Court, County of King or something like that, it's probably just the notice. But would want to make sure that there's documentation in place that shows that the landlord knows that you are not living there, so that if he does end up naming you in a case, then that'll make it just that much easier for you to have your name removed from that case.
Okay, I guess my worry is that I feel like the landlord's trying to because the landlord suspects that somebody is living there because my friend asked, oh, can I have a roommate?
It's a question all you want, but
I couldn't hear that. But
I'm just muttering to myself.
Okay, I guess my worry is that if then I contact the landlord, now he knows who I am and he can try to prove that I'm like.
That's why I would want your friend
to. I'm couch surfing there, and I got a piece of mail there, and I'm storing some stuff there, and I'm can he try to say in court, oh no, this person is living here, and then if
he
so,
can try. But that's why I want to make sure that your friend gives the landlord this documentation. This is my friend. They do not live here. The end. And that way, if you do end up in court, it's pretty clear that you're not a party to that case.
Okay, and I think so. My friend, I think, is more on the page of just like filing things in court or complaints to the city. Would you say just to do it, just skip straight to that, or would you say actually provide that documentation, just write that to the landlord individually or directly?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing the city's really going to be able to do about it. I mean,
Okay,
they
so
could go in and
say
say, okay, you need to rescind the notice as to this person, but unless it's something that's like in the court system, you know, it's not really going to have an impact on you. And if he does try to say, oh, this person definitely lived here and like, I don't know, file collections agency or something, that would be nuts because you would have probably evidence like, look, I don't live here. I live over there. This is my address. And like, I got a letter here one time, or I got a couple of things just because I knew I'd be in town then. So it's about documenting as much as you can to show like, I am not a tenant.
I can't document the different address because I don't have an address is the thing.
Well, that also happens too. So then I would say, I don't know, I would say then just focus on having your friend document the fact that you're not living there.
Okay.
Because that would probably be your biggest piece of evidence in that instance. Because, oh, this is just my friend, they just moved out of this place. Like if you end up in court, oh, this is my friend, they were staying with me for like a
So
week
can you
or
just hold it a
so.
little bit
And then,
closer?
yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
it's right here, I promise.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry that we're having connection issues. So I would just say you want to make sure that you've got some documentation in place that shows you were not living there. And so that's why I would really hammer down on that letter, and that, or an email to the landlord just saying the customary method of communicating with the landlord, as we discussed.
I
And
guess I
saying,
don't really want to contact the landlord because
no, your friend.
he's like harassed my friend and stuff, and I don't really want him to have my contact
No,
information.
have your friend do that. Have your friend send a
Like,
letter
my
or
friend will
email
do
or
it.
whatever that
Okay.
says, yeah, they don't live here.
Okay. And so just to clarify, you're saying that if there's no court case number on that eviction note, or that it's a notice to vacate,
Yeah, if it's a
I
notice to like
think
pay or vacate or something, and I can even drop the
14-day
link.
notice to pay rent or vacate the premises.
Oh yeah, then that's just a notice and that shouldn't impact you. It's just a notice. So I'm also going to drop a link. So I just put in the chat. It's King County Case Search for eviction cases. You want to click civil case search type 2. And then if you need to
Wait,
see,
sorry, can you say that again? It's hard to hear.
yeah, it's okay.
So
I just put a link in the chat, and that is a case search website for King County Superior Court. You want to press type 2 for civil, because that's what an eviction action is. And then you can search by name to see if anything's been filed that has your name on it or your friend's name on it.
Okay, thank you. I gotta scroll down in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. And then I have a couple other questions. I also don't know when this ends, so do I have time to ask a couple other questions?
Well, if you have any questions, we're happy to chat with you on the
for my
resource line,
friend's
because I
sake.
don't want to steal everybody else's time. I know that I'm a talker.
Yeah, sorry, you said you're happy to chat with me on what, where would that be?
Yeah, the King County Tenant Resource Line. I've put the phone number in the chat, and I'll drop it again. And that is a resource line for tenants in King County to call and get information. So if you have like a bunch of questions and you want a more in-depth conversation, because I think that would probably what would be most useful right now is for me to answer like general questions. But if you want to dig into your situation, that's totally cool. Let's do it at a time where we can really dig in and talk.
Okay, I have just one that might actually be more applicable to others that I can ask.
Sure.
And that is, and I think you kind of touched on this, but I didn't get it fully. Can an eviction be enforced after the moratorium if the notice is posted before the moratorium?
Well, they still have to get, your landlord cannot evict you without a valid signed court order. If your landlord changes your locks, or if they try to remove your furniture, that is illegal and that is not allowed. Well, because it's illegal, so obviously, but no, it wouldn't be a surprise. Like there's court documentation that has to happen. There's a whole process that has to happen before they can post that eviction order on your door. And then it also has to be posted on your door for a few days before the sheriff comes back and then tries to remove anybody. So you would have time. It shouldn't be a surprise.
Okay, perfect. And then the rest, if I have any more questions, that number you posted, 206-580, that's the right one?
Yes, and Tanea, she is with the tenants union. She's lovely and she helps us on the hotline. And she is dropping a lot of the stuff that we share with people in the chat right now when there's like a pay or vacate.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tanea. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Tanea.
Maureen, we'll take your question and then we need to move on into the next
Yes.
section.
Thank you. So I took a look at the link that Kasey posted on the statute of limitations, and it looks like there's a 4-year window where if there's a default on anything with the renter, then obviously if they're telling me that I owe money from 2014, that's way past the 4 years statute of limitations. So is that what I should be, should I respond saying here's the statute that the law that applies to what you're telling me. And, this is way past, the statute of limitations. I mean, if I owe the money, I'm willing to pay the money, but they also have to show me proof, right? So ask for the ledger.
I would say step 1, ask for the ledger.
Okay.
Step 2, review the ledger. If the ledger is full of dumbness, then point out what's wrong. If it is correct, then figure out, okay, do I want to fight this?
Yeah.
And that will inform your next step.
Okay, that makes sense. Great, thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Let me share my screen again. Hold on 1 second.
Are you tired of hearing my voice?
Never.
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 Keep being too nice.
All right. All right. Now on to the next portion. I'm going to introduce my lovely, lovely counterpart. Kate Rubin has led Seattle's executive director through the global pandemic, adapting our services to fit the changing time. As the organizing director, she co-leads Seattle in partnership with myself, the operations director. Kate oversees all the organizing, including the renters councils, one-on-one meetings, building tenant organizing, and policy advocacy. She also does all of our social media design and works with me on these lovely workshops. She worked in Rainier Valley for 15 years for a special inspection firm, during which time she witnessed the rapid gentrification of the surrounding neighborhood. Watching the displacement and seeing the culture of the neighborhood chipped away motivated her to get involved in housing organizing. She volunteered for Seattle as a canvasser for rent control and participated with the Sidewalk Pantry before becoming the organizing director. There we go.
Thank you, Tanya. So we've talked a lot about renter protections and identified some major gaps in the existing protections that we have just in this conversation alone. And so I would like to plug Seattle's 2 renter organizing councils. We have the Seattle Renter Organizing Council, which meets on the 2nd Thursday of each month, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. At El Centro de la Raza. We always have dinner provided, and we have a Zoom option for folks who can't make it in person, but if you can, definitely come in person. It's fun. And then the Elder Renter Council, which is on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. These are hybrid meetings as well, but we lost our consistent library meeting location. So we're currently looking for a new home. So we don't have a location for you right now. But Tanya will drop some links to sign up for our email lists for both of these. So if you want to get involved, you can. So we started this group a year ago, and for most of this year, we've been organizing around the idea of an office of rental housing standards that would hold landlords accountable in a more meaningful way than what SDCI and somewhat that's the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections. As we noted before, they're the ones who enforce the landlord tenant laws, and the Seattle Office for Civil Rights. So they enforce the discrimination cases. So when it comes to SDCI, a major issue that keeps coming up over and over and over is that they only do complaint-based investigations, and if they find that there's a problem and the landlord fixes it eventually, there's no punishment, there's no consequences to the landlord for disobeying the laws. So for example, Laureen, like what's happening with Laureen right now, where they're trying to get money from her that she likely does not owe due to the statute of limitations. She's the one who's figuring out whether or not it's illegal, and if she needs to file a complaint with the city, they would go to the landlord and they'd say, hey, this is illegal, and the landlord would say, oops, I guess we won't go after her for the money then. But if she didn't do all that research and just wrote him a check, they would get away with it. And that happens in so many different layers. So this happens when it comes to repairs. You know, you're without heat for 2 weeks and you finally get fed up and file a complaint with SDCI, and they come out and they tell the landlord, hey, this tenant is supposed to have heat. Their complaint is right. They don't have heat. And the landlord says, oh, oops, I didn't know I was supposed to fix the heat. I'll do that now. Nothing happens to them. They just get away with it. And meanwhile, you're paying them rent for unsuitable living conditions. So this came up a lot. So we've been advocating for this new office that would really offer some robust enforcement, kind of similar to the way the Office of Labor Standards goes after bosses who break the law and violate workers' protections. So we have been advocating to council, and council members Morales and Mosqueda put forward an item in the budget for 2024 that would add $50,000 general funds one time to the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections to convene a tenant work group to develop and recommend strategies to protect the health and well-being of renters. This could include, but is not limited to, creating a new office dedicated to enforcing current laws and establishing new laws, requirements, and standards related to renters. This should consider the costs and implementation steps associated with any recommended strategies. So we went back and forth as to what this work group needed to look like in order to be successful. Because if you put a bunch of landlords into this work group, they're going to water it down to the point where this office would never be effective. So according to the budget action, and this was through our advocacy that we got here, the work group will consist of 3 renters appointed by the Seattle Renters Commission, 2 eviction defense attorneys, and 2 tenant organizers. The work group may expand as needed. The work group would develop recommendations in consultation with city departments with expertise in tenant issues, including the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, the Office for Civil Rights, and the city attorney's office. That part is important because SDCI has to work with the city attorney to actually go after landlords currently. And so it also notes of the $50,000, an amount determined by the work group will be allocated to language access and tenant stipends. So that ensures that the community has input on the legislation that comes from this work group. Kim, you have a question?
Go with this all these little buttons. Yeah, I did. Is this part of the anything to do with the new LLC and accountability that they're trying to work on for landlords, making them like landlords that have multiple properties? What do you call that? Just so the law knows how many properties sorry, I'm all over the predatorial landlords this week. They've on my left nerve. I can't stand them. They are so abusing the system, and I'm so freaking done with it. But anyways, it's something to do with the LLCs and making anybody that's renting homes out have to report when they're doing maintenance and something like that. And I'm not sure exactly what it is, but isn't there something changing in 2024 with that?
Interesting. I've been talking to some organizers in other cities and heard like whisperings that this is something that we were trying to go for, but I haven't heard anything formal. So unless someone
else... I hope I didn't just open a can of worms from a meeting I went to.
I mean, no, this is
I hope it happens because we need it horrifically.
Right. This is definitely something that we have been talking about as organizers for a really long time, that we, they go to the city council meetings and act like, oh, I only have one property under
such
this
a poor
name.
land. Yeah, no shit. Excuse me. We found out that one landlord had properties Seattle, Bellevue, Canada, and LA, all on Section 8 programs, and none of them will pass inspections if it was by code.
So this is
And
something
she wasn't
that
in, yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna pause myself.
this is something that this work group could potentially identify, but definitely this office could expand upon and really clarify as far as putting forward new legislation. It would be honestly better if it happened at a state level, because landlords own properties all over, and we want to figure out the bad actors, and it's not just the city of Seattle. But this, I just want to note, like, this item in the budget would not have existed had someone from this group not conceived of it, and had the group not really backed it. We asked for community support and had a sign-on letter from 30 plus organizations, including the oh my gosh, I just spaced on their name. Oh, the Low Income Housing Alliance, and they're a big statewide organization. And we had people show up to council and speak in support of it. And it was actually the advocacy at council that got this into the budget without having to get 2 co-sponsors. The budget chair saw enough people came to speak in support. You can see Dee and Dwayne down there at the bottom with their little speaker signs at the first budget hearing. And then here's a group of us at the second budget hearing. We were there to thank the council members for putting it into the balancing package, and also support a tenant who was organizing in their building, by noting how important this office would be to people organizing in their building, because they don't really have a lot of power. So another part of these renter organizing councils is to give space for people organizing in their building to have peer-to-peer support. So you have tenant organizers like myself, like our friends over at the tenants union, who are there to guide you, and we have resources like teaching you like best practices, but also, like, once people have been organizing for a while, they become the experts and they figure out what's working and what's not working, and they want to show up for each other. So we had community members make signs, and we've had them show up for rallies. So Tanya, can you go to the next slide, please? So this is also a plug for you to organize your building. So like I said, Be Seattle, we can offer support. We can help you set up meetings, and we can share resources, and we can help you talk to your neighbors and get the structure set up. The tenants union can do that as well. They're incredible. I learned most of my building organizing from organizers at the tenants union. And they're still out there doing it. They're amazing. And there's also some grassroots organizers, the Seattle Solidarity Network, and the Puget Sound Tenants Union. They're autonomous. I'm not sure what their capacity is, but Be Seattle and the Tenants Union both have paid staff who want to help support this work. So if you want to organize in your building, please reach out to us. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, but also it's just coming to talk about potentially organizing in your building at these meetings is a great place to get advice and starting points as well. And so here we have the sign from the organizer James at Cal Anderson House, and behind to the left we have an activity where we worked together to develop a list of demands, and the tenants submitted a petition, and it's been escalating. And then over here on the right we have folks outside of Columbia Gardens, part of Rainier Court. They did a big rally. This is a building that we supported with the tenants union leading on the tenant organizing on this. And they got a lot of their demands met and were able to halt rent increases. It was pretty incredible. So yeah, fight to organize your building. And then if you could go to the next slide, please. And I just, oops, clicked on the wrong thing. Now, we have a special guest, and of course, my script just stopped loading. Give me 1 second. Okay. We want you to join the Renters Commission. I am a new commissioner, but we actually have Kim McGillivray, one of the co-chairs, here to speak. Kim McGillivray was a Seattleite from her first breath, which was drawn at Swedish Hospital on First Hill. She went to local public schools and state universities before beginning her career in television news at King. She moved to Washington, D.C. to work for the NBC-owned station WRC. Wanting a more active role than journalism allows, Kim went to law school, interning for one federal judge and later clerking for another. She combined law and news to analyze court options from across the country as a reporter for the Bureau of National Affairs, now Bloomberg BNA. Returning to Seattle in 2000, Kim worked for the federal government as a writer and editor and went back to school to learn about nonprofits and grant writing. She currently works as a data analyst on a domestic violence program study, backed by the Gates Foundation, is a field interviewer with the National Study of Medicare, and volunteers with agencies supporting the elderly, the LGBTQ community, and fighting racism and poverty and their myriad effects. Kim, thank you so much for coming to speak on the Renters Commission. Go ahead and take it away. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Balancing my laptop on my knee here, so there's just a lot of moving parts I don't usually deal with. Thanks very much, Kate. I am happy to serve on the Renters Commission. We have an important role to play in bringing your stories and your issues forward and seeing if we can get action taken on them. During the pandemic,
Building is closing to see.
yes, okay. Sorry, I'm being told the building's closing. I know. During the pandemic, we were able to consider some of the laws that have been recently passed that are very, very pro-tenant. But we began to see a pattern where you don't have enforcement mechanisms, where the burden is really on the tenant to get the landlord to do the right thing. And so that going forward is one of our focuses, is getting people on the city council, in committees, in agencies, to start looking for the kinds of language we can put in. A particular example that I use is I live in income adjusted housing. I've done that for 3 years. I have yet to get a receipt. I've paid rent. I never get a receipt. And now, when there are issues about when did you pay, how much did you pay, etc., if I didn't keep money orders and receipts for money orders, it's a stack of them. It's stuff that I would normally throw in the trash, but it's like, wait a minute, I'm not getting receipts. I got to keep something. I got to have some proof in case an issue comes up. And the burden is on me to save the little tiny pieces of paper that would otherwise just be in the recycle bin. That's not right. So a landlord by law is required to give me a receipt, required to give all of us receipts. A lot of us don't get them. And then when trouble comes, we don't have a way to defend ourselves. Oh, that's nice. I'm still here. But since the building's closing, the lights are going out. Anyhow, the Seattle Renters Commission is going to be reviewing the laws like that, like the 6-month notice. Who enforces it when you only get 3 months? Why is there not a penalty that you get in terms of money? Like, why do you not get the 3 missing months worth of rent? The difference? No, the whole month. It's really about these kinds of rights that you have, but you can't enforce. So you know, enforcement is key. I think that part of what Kate was probably talking about before I got here was about the office that she was speaking of just moments ago. And that would be one of the focuses of that office. It's also a focus of the Renters Commission. If you have examples of how your landlord has not been following the rules, playing the game it's supposed to be played, that's part of what we receive. That's part of what we should be able to take to the city council, because we're an advisory committee, but we serve as a channel for any and all of you to get that information to the places where it can be dealt with, rather than just the coffee shops where we share our misery. Does anybody have any questions or any examples, any comments? I'd love to hear them.
And also I want to know, the Renters Commission meetings are always open to the public, and we've just started over the past, I would say, like 6 to 8 months, started getting people coming to talk to us about this stuff. So Tanya dropped a link in the chat to the city website for the Renters Commission, and in there you can sign up to get emails about the Renters Commission, which means you will get a link to join the meetings virtually, and I think they'll let you know where the meetings are going to be held. We've been meeting at the Capitol Hill Library when we can reserve a space. As with the Elder Council, I think we can't always get that space. So it's moved a couple times, but you know, I'm a new member, and it's really great. It's a group of people who are really passionate about this, and Kim's right. This is how you get the city to listen, is going through, like, I mean, you can always show up to a council meeting and yell at them, but if you want to parse it out and really figure out what that can mean, and get a team behind you, come to the Renters Commission. Tell us what you need.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily come to the meeting, although that's the best way. And we love meeting you and hearing from you in person, because then if we've got questions, it's just a conversation and we can fill in the picture and some of the blanks. But you can email us too. The Department of Neighborhoods has a liaison for the Renters Commission. So it's not, we're not deeply hidden. We're not in the bowels of City Hall somewhere. We're right on the landing page for the Department of Neighborhoods. And so you can be in contact with us if you've got something that you don't have the time on a first Wednesday or something to show up. No problem. Just write us. But we need examples so that we have concrete evidence of how things are not working in this city, despite the laws that have been passed. So you'd be helping us. Hopefully we'd be helping you. We're not troubleshooters. We're not a nonprofit where we can say, oh, well, you know, give us this, and this piece of information, and we'll see if we can get you a check or a lawyer. That's unfortunately not us, but we do have a different role to play that's ultimately more powerful in recommending that the people who change the laws, you know, can do that in a meaningful way. So looking for your help going forward with that process.
All right. We are almost done. Kim, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next month at the Renters.
Yeah, and I'm checking out before I get kicked out of this building. Thanks so much, but please do write us, do come and tell us stories. That's why we're here. Good night. Bye, Kate.
Bye. Okay. I'm going to keep this pretty brief. There's also, if you're more interested in getting involved on a state level with organizing, because what we've been talking about here is entirely Seattle level organizing, getting changes at a city council level. And for me, for Be Seattle, we really only organize buildings in the city of Seattle. The Tenants Union is a statewide organization, and they can offer more support than we can. But if you want to work on a statewide policy, consider joining the Resident Action Project. I am a member myself. The Resident Action Project is a program of the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, the Washington Housing Alliance Action Fund, and is supported by Community Change. It's a statewide organizing network led by individuals residing in low income and affordable housing, as well as those with lived experiences of housing injustice, instability, and or homelessness. The network also includes nonprofit resident service managers and direct service staff. They are dedicated to building a cross-race and class movement statewide to address housing justice. They believe that this is achieved through storytelling, organizing, civic engagement, and building power to effect change in local and federal laws and policies. The organization holds the belief that those closest to the problem are closest to the solutions, but furthest from the resources and decision-making tables. So please join the meetings. The King County meetings are held on the 4th Tuesday of every month, 5:30 to 7 p.m. And then there's quarterly statewide meetings on the second Wednesday of December, March, June, and September at 5 to 6:30. And the December meeting, we talked about it a little bit earlier when we were doing the events, is going to be a training with Community Change, and it's going to be a really good one. So with that, we'll head right into the action. Because at every workshop, we like to include an action that you can take right away. So tonight's action comes from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. Rent increases have forced over 136,000 of Washington's households to move in the first 6 months of 2023. And where did these renters go? With housing out of reach of low and moderate income households, the chances that they were able to find an affordable home in their community or anywhere in Washington is slim. Rent increases lead to evictions, community instability, and homelessness. Washington must do better. Housing stability for renters is critical to ending the homeownership gap that too many Black and other people of color households face. If tenants continue to pay so much of their incomes towards excessive rent increases, their credit and ability to save for a home purchase are compromised. Many BIPOC households are renters in Washington state. Advancing tenant protections like rent stabilization is critical to address the needs of BIPOC households. The good news is that lawmakers have the opportunity to solve this problem by passing solid protections against destabilizing rent increases while still allowing modest increases to cover inflation and repairs. Washington can stabilize our rental market and set the foundation for a day when the key drivers of homelessness are solved. If you're sick of seeing homelessness increase in our communities, please tell your lawmakers that they must pass protections next session. Now is the time that lawmakers are setting priorities for the 2024 legislative session that begins in early January. So please make sure your lawmakers know how important this issue is by sending them a note now. And there's a note here that you can make your email more effective by adding 1 or 2 sentences to the letter with a personal message about the impact of lawmaker inaction to stabilize rents. So if you go through the form, you can do that after you click on Take Action. And with that, oh my gosh, look at us. We are ending right on time at 8 p.m. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to our co-hosts, Queer Power Alliance, and our amazing attorney from the Tenant Law Center, Kasey, and also in the comments, Tanea from the Tenants Union, just dropping so much info. Really, really appreciate you, and I appreciate you all for coming and spending your evening with us. Have a good one.
Thank you all.
Thank you.